We're still here live at the 31st edition of the Nigerian Economic Summit, and joining us this morning is a special advisor to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, special advisor to the President on Economic Affairs, Dr. Tope Fasua, and we'll be discussing some of the issues that will be raised here at the 31st NES. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Gbenga. It's good to be here.
Now, Dr. Fasua, this year's summit focuses on the reform imperative. From your vantage point in the presidency, what does this imperative mean for Nigeria right now as we speak? And what's the difference between this reform and former reforms that we've had in the past? I mean, it's bold and ambitious, no doubt about that.
Right. It's a fantastic question. In fact, that's a question for the times. And indeed, it's also a kind of an introspection call for us to say, well, what's really different, and why are we gung-ho about it? So I think quite a few things are different. We are. Someone asked me some time back about what's different between these and the SAP era. And I think that what I told the person was, we're working now with the benefit of hindsight. We saw what the mistakes we made in the SAP era. In fact, in the SAP era, what we had was deindustrialization because, they told us that, look, once you recalibrate the economy, privatize all privatizables, crash your currency and everything will tumble in. But this time, we've learned better. And what we're seeing is a reindustrialization that, we're seeing, for example, if you look at manufacturing exports in the last 2 quarters, there was a growth of 173%, year-on-year 67%. And even the devaluation, or rather the depreciation of the currency this time around, has now caused the real behavioral changes that we wanted to achieve in the SAP era. A little less foreign travel, a little less import. Imports are down by 30% now, whereas exports are surging. So there's been quite I think that we are, perhaps if I would say, perhaps we're smarter now. We have a larger number of smarter people. Even the social media is playing a role because every action of government, and in fact inaction, gets critiqued by the citizens. And of course, government becomes more responsible to say, you know what, we can't do this because this is what the people will say. And of course, we also get information from the people. There's more feedback now. Things are happening a lot faster. Absolutely. So we live in a different era, and so these reform imperatives are what they are. Mr. President has been very bold in saying, you know what, let's take out the oil subsidy, which started in 1974. And since 1974, after a while, it became an albatross on the neck of this country. So the whole idea that because we produce crude oil, then we must have it so cheap, extremely cheap. It didn't quite work. We were paying $10 billion in fuel subsidy at some point, year on year. And so now being able to walk away from it, and what has that done? Putting a lot more money in the pockets of state governments, local governments, even the federal government for infrastructural purposes. And of course, one thing that needs to also be covered is the rush of infrastructural projects that's going on at state level. I understand that many contractors now prefer to work for state governments where the bureaucracy is smaller, and I think they're now getting their money. Exactly, which is also something. Now, so
talking about
way to go.
Still on the subject of reforms like FX unification and subsidy removal have set a new direction for the economy, no doubt. But they also come with short-term pain.
Yes, indeed.
The President did reiterate in his Independence Day speech. How is government working to ensure these reforms lead to visible improvements in productivity and living standards? Okay,
on productivity, you can see that already we're recording 4.23% in second quarter GDP growth, which is above the 3.4% that's been projected by the World Bank, even the 3.8% that we had thought, for this year. And I believe that we're even going to grow faster. I believe that the growth of the economy may get to 5% in the next quarter, September, when it is done. Because luckily we haven't seen so much volatility in that period of time. In fact, the Naira is getting stronger. And as the Naira gets stronger, that increases the volume, the dollar volume of the GDP as well. So yes, there have been pains, but the first thing I like to say is that the worst is over. For example, when you talk about subsidy removal, if honestly and sincerely, when you do that sincerely, you can only do it once. So you can't do it twice. The worst is over. Whoever has survived that pain in the last, from May 2023, Mr. President call it June 2023, he made this pronouncement. There was volatility in the market. The Naira was floated. There was some other volatility. We had that double whammy, all right? So, but, like I always tell people, nothing lasts forever. And what goes up must come down, so you can see inflation trending down to 20.12%. In fact, there was a report by RenCap, the Russian-based investment firm, to the extent that, look, from their own calculation, Nigeria's inflation is actually 12%, and that we are overestimating the inflation. And they gave some example. For example, we're putting more weight on non-alcoholic drinks, even over transportation and so on. So no data is perfect, but what the general consensus is that our inflation will continue to go down. What that means is that life will get easier for people. What that means is that the Naira in your pocket will actually get stronger as inflation goes down. And in fact, we all expect that by 2026, we're going to have single-digit inflation. RenCap projects 6%. I project about 8% in the middle of next year. Because again, if you look at our comparator countries like Pakistan, like Ghana, Ghana had 50% inflation. Now they're on 11%. Pakistan had about 45% inflation. Now they're on 2%. In fact, the real thing that you want to fear as an economist is deflation. A scenario where prices are falling and people are not encouraged to produce more. Then you have a problem. But so we're going to get it up. So the worst is over. And these reforms, because they're big, they are bold, they are big, bold, hairy, and audacious goals, I think we're turning the corner in this. In fact, I wrote an article on this, which came out in Premium Times yesterday, which I sent, Nigeria Rising, how to counter that rhetoric of doomsday that has always surrounded the economy.
I do appreciate your positivity and that you see that the glass is half full. But ordinary Nigerians, the layman, will be thinking, okay, this positive growth, GDP growth, the drop in inflation level, how does that translate to in their lives? How does that affect them? Yes. And inclusive growth is at the heart of the summit's theme. Yes. What are the key policy levers the government is deploying to make sure that the benefits of reform, that this pain they have endured from ordinary Nigerians would reach them and not just corporate boardrooms?
Fantastic. So, yes, first of all, corporate boardrooms, you see that many of the manufacturing companies, the Unilevers of this world, the Guinness of this world, the breweries, Nigeria Breweries PLC and Co., that were even including MTN, that were reporting losses about 2-3 years ago, are back to black. Now they are reporting profits and the banks are doing incredibly well. So that's as far as the corporate world is concerned. But it's about meeting in two places. The government is also, according to the Minister of Finance, Coordinating Minister of the Economy, we spent about 330 billion on cash transfers, which is to the most vulnerable people amongst us. Well, the thing is that we are not particularly putting so much in that one because of the tendency to be waste in that area.
Yeah,
but however,
also argue that
you also
encourage people to fish rather than
absolutely that's what we're about. But then again, the third thing is that so apart from giving money out, apart from making sure that companies go back to black so that they can employ more people and pay their people better. Of course, things like the minimum wage has been increased from 33% at 33,000 to 70,000 on the federal. Lagos State is paying about 110,000. Imo State 102,000. Most of the states are doing even better than the federal because they have the cash. So it's about going at that one. However, the more critical aspect, and which goes back to the idea of teaching people to fish, is that the people also, we must encourage people to reposition. Young people and the not so young must learn to reposition. So rather than actually criticizing, why is the government building that road? The road is going to nowhere. Why is it going to, so yes, thought and fiscal. So rather than criticize why are they doing that bridge, use that bridge. First of all, it's either you're making yourself available to work in that sector that's growing, to say, you know what, this road is coming up, I have the skill, can I approach them? What can I? In fact, the truth is that there are many sectors in this country that are looking for people. And one of the biggest problems that entrepreneurs have, especially at the MSME level, is the ability to get staff and keep them. When people are working, many Nigerians are very impatient. Young people, 6 months, they want to leave. They want to do something else and so on. So the gap is there. Even don't think that you are unskilled. What you have is still usable and very valuable, irrespective of the courses you studied in university or polytechnic or whatever. So please reposition your mind and physically. Use that infrastructure the government is providing to reposition yourself. Including the fact that, look, one of the key issues in poverty eradication is the ability for people to leave where they are to go to where the jobs might be. Okay, so please follow the money, follow the infrastructure, and reposition your mind in terms of, like you said, I'm positive. I've always been positive. I believe that, look, there's great opportunity in this country. A country that is still growing is likely going to be able to do better for its people than a country that has already plateaued. Go to Europe. In some places in Europe, it's all about demonstration and rioting and all of that. Go to the US, the same thing. Many of these economies have plateaued. So even when we begin to offer our service to them in the so-called jackpot phenomenon, sometimes we undersell ourselves, because they're going there. Some people have left good-paying jobs there to go and be doing cleaner jobs in those places, or maybe some sort of care jobs and so on. So the people need to reposition their minds and, of course, physically to be where the action is.
Now, finally, Dr. Fasua, the theme for this year's summit is the reform imperative, building a prosperous and inclusive Nigeria by 2030. If you were to define success for this reform agenda by 2030, what would it look like in real terms? More jobs, higher productivity, or stronger?
By 2030, I would want to project. Success for me will be at least 10% growth in the GDP. Success for me will be at least 30 to 40 million people taken out of poverty. Okay? Success for me will be a lot more inclusiveness, a lot more job. Success for me will be job creation. Success for me will be the infrastructure stock of this country, which is at 30% today, compared with even Kenya at 46%, compared to Egypt at 70%, that, our infrastructure stock should be able to grow from 30% to at least 55%. That will be success for me. And I think it's achievable if we just, stay focused and let everybody rally around this country and do better.
Dr. Tope Fasua, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, as special advisor to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on economic affairs. Thank you.